Hi, everyone. Greetings from the other side of the world. I am in the United States right now with my sons taking a break with family. I couldn't be here live because of the time zone difference, but I'd really like to thank Professor Chhaya for agreeing to come on board. And I'd like to say that we couldn't have found anyone better than him to spread some love for teaching and learning architecture on this glorious celebration of Teachers' Day. At our course, we've been talking about vernacularizing and contextualizing architectural education. And Professor Chhaya really walks the talk. The last time I met him was at a COE event, which was commemorating the conclusion of my walk for our cause. It was there that we discussed, in fact, he suggested a walking studio. And I was really taken in by the idea, and I'm looking forward to going ahead with a few walking studios. And he has open-heartedly agreed to support us on this. We invite colleges to walk, talk, and learn with us during these walks. More of this soon. We have passionately supported students and been the wind beneath their wings since our inception. Today, 20 days away from our 20th year anniversary, on the 29th of September, I humbly thank all of you for making ethos a part of your journey. I will now hand over to the team to take the session forward.
Thank you, Geeta, and welcome all to a bright Friday morning where we will discuss sense and sensibility with Professor Neelkanth Chhaya. I'm Sona Mambe, and today let us explore the joy of learning architecture as a part of our Teachers' Day celebrations. My co-host Neeraj Kumar from IIEST Shivpur has joined us on behalf of NASA India. And we are happy to see the support from the fraternity, and special thanks especially to colleges for taking this initiative of broadcasting this at your auditorium and to share with your students these lovely, beautiful, unique anecdotes on learning architecture from Professor Chhaya. Today, Professor Chhaya, we sincerely thank you for accepting our invitation, and we welcome you, sir. My first interaction with Professor Chhaya was during the Kurulavarki Forum, where I presented my thesis on Brownfield Recovery and Resource Recycling Center. He came up to me and he said, "You recycled the site as well. Every design of yours should aim to do that." As a young student, I didn't understand what that comment meant, but gave a hurried nod, like one would in a fan moment. The thing is, some lessons are not learned instantaneously, as soon as they're given by the teacher. The vessel also has to be ready to accept the lessons, right? I was not ready then to understand the depth of his message, and now today I do. That's the beauty of a great teacher. Their messages linger and come to you when you are ready. We're really humbled to have you with us today, Professor Chhaya. I will request Neeraj, Vice President, NASA India, to come to the screen to introduce Professor Chhaya.
Thank you, Sona. It's a privilege to be here with Professor Chhaya. He is an inspiring mentor to many students and even well-established architects across India. Neelkanth Chhaya has been an academic and practicing architect for nearly 40 years now. He has taught at the University of Nairobi, the Institute of Environmental Design at Vallabh Vidyanagar, and was a faculty member at CEPT University for over 25 years. He retired as the Dean of Faculty of Architecture at CEPT in 2013. Subsequently, he has been an adjunct faculty at Srishti School of Design. His professional practice, spanning over 30 years, has dealt with institutional and residential projects across India. His practice has won many architectural design competitions and has won national awards for completed projects. The practice is focused on culturally and environmentally appropriate design and has emphasized on the innovative application of local skills and materials. He has been invited to be the mentor of several committees connected to built environment and is the coordinator of architectural documentation work of Gandhi Heritage Sites Mission. He is a regular speaker at the conferences in India and abroad. He is a member of boards of Hunarshala and Khamer Craft Resource Center, both of which are involved in empowering traditional knowledge and sustainable practices. Welcome, Professor Chhaya. The stage is yours.
Thank you all. It's always a great pleasure to be with students. but especially today, there are so many people whom I have met and whom I have known. It's nice to see all those faces too. I think I will launch straight off. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about my happy journey as a learner and a teacher. It's often not so nice to be called a teacher. You know, in our languages, we say pantoji. But this is so if you are not interested in learning. If one is curious and keen to understand more and more, one is a learner. And if one is a learner, one is happy to share the excitement of finding out, of understanding. Then it's fine to be a teacher if you are a learner. One learns while teaching. And you'll see how I have learned from my students as well. Who is the student? Who is the teacher? This is a vague, rolling question. So what have I learned from my life in teaching? And I'll talk about the big things that I have learned. This is from learning from working in the studio, in the design studio with students, but also working in the office with colleagues, friends, other students. And over this period of time, I have a little idea of what I have learned. So the first thing is that architecture can be considered a tool, a kind of prosthetic device. Now it arises out of our weakness in the face of nature. We can't withstand the extremes of nature. We can't sleep in the rain. If it's very cold, we can't stay. So we need something that allows us to have a degree of comfort in the face of nature. So it's our weakness which gives rise to architecture. But both apprehension, that is fear, and wonder begin in this human condition of inadequacy. We humans, the moment we realize that we are inadequate, we are sometimes fearful, sometimes we are lost in wonder. When you see that starry sky at night, and you say, I'm just a tiny little spot here, there's wonder. So both of these begin in this human condition of inadequacy, and they give rise to architecture. Somebody has drawn some lines on the slides. I don't know how that came. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Delete it, yes.
Yeah, it's okay. So our inadequacy is not a matter of regret. Oh, I'm weak, I should be strong. No, not that. It is the source of all expression. Our weakness is the source of all expression, including the expressions in art and architecture. The embracing of inadequacy leads to poetic expression. This is one of the things that I have learned. That the more I try to say, oh, I know it, I can do it, I've done it several times before, and I'm strong enough to do it, then I won't be doing something which is poetic. It's only when I feel that, wow, how do I get into this now? It's completely new. I've never seen it before. And I'm inadequate to it. I haven't learned how to do it. Then I become, in my the work that I do, that a degree of poetry comes about. Rilke, the great poet Rilke, writing letters to a young poet, wrote, "A work of art is good if it has arisen out of necessity." Out of necessity. That is the only way one can judge it. Now, necessity is a terrible master. And you have to follow gravity, all the things which prevent us from being free. But there it is. Here is Gandhi's house, Bapu Kutir at Wardha. Absolute attention to necessity only. But what beauty! The whole poetry of this building arises out of that sense of necessity. Best thing to look at is the bottom right slide, shows his toilet. It's quite something. Or here is the Kannada's house in Bangalore. Wonderful architects, both of them. There is Navnath sitting. It's a tiny house. And only that which they need absolutely they could afford. Nothing more than that. And yet so poetic. And so necessity is not necessarily something that dumbs you down. That you say, oh no, I have to do this. The structural engineer is saying I have to do this. No. Now, next series of lessons. Technology, language, customs, rituals, stories, art, even architecture are all tools that help us face the world. You can see here how all these people are so intensely involved in what they're doing. Their faces show. They're completely lost in that material and in that tool and how to work with it. And they're continuously learning from the material. Or here is Kahn's Richard's medical building under construction on the left, pre-stressed beams and columns. On the right is Indian Institute of Management under construction. And even there, the sense of making is something which is allowing the facing of the world. But we also desire freedom from implacable necessity. Necessity is so demanding, right? Things will fall to the ground. There is no way in which we can stop them from falling to the ground because gravity is implacable. And there are so many like that. But we want freedom. So we want freedom and we don't want to overcome necessity. These are our paradoxical needs. The need for certainty, predictability, routines, etc. That's all we want also. That I'd like to earn enough to pay my so and so. I want a predictability. I want a routine. Yet, I want freedom as well. Open-endedness, unpredictability, surprise. We want both of them. And that is the very essence of being human, but it's also the very essence of learning architecture. Soichi Yanagi, the great Japanese author who wrote The Unknown Craftsman, says, man is most free when his tools are proportionate to his needs. Never forget this sentence. Man is most free when his tools are proportionate to his needs. If the tools are too small, won't be able to do. If the tools are too big, as our tools become larger, more all-encompassing, more capable of precise outcomes, we become less free. This is something that you can look up in your own life, that the better and better and more precise the tools you got, the less free you became. See how much freedom do you have from your phone? None of you have it. Language is, so now what is the loss of freedom? Language becomes more ambiguous, or less ambiguous, less open. Routines become more rigid. Institutions, the state, markets, systems become bigger and more controlling. Technologies become more cumbersome and demanding and have a greater impact. So here is a cartoon by the great American author James Thurber. And here's a man who is coming back home in the evening after a day's work. And the home is a very good, proper home, big one. His tool for survival is good, but see how the house is looking at him. Because it will consume him. It will make him do. Every day he'll have to sweep all the floors. He will have to clean the windows. He will have to see that whether the heating is right temperature or not. Every day. And there is him becoming less free. Our tools start to use us, and instead of we using the tools. Here's Charlie Chaplin in modern times. He's working in a factory and there are machines to feed the staff. So here he's hooked up to the machine, and the machine had one butta of maize, and it starts rotating much faster, and almost all his teeth fall out. And you can see these two unfortunate ladies. They cannot eat peacefully, they cannot work peacefully. The tools have started using them. Internet uses you. Diversity decreases. All the time, you become more and more similar. Then you have to buy more and more things to look different. Then everybody is looking the same as you are. Then again, you have to buy more things. And so, this kind of a mad race is a race. And in architecture also, the same thing is happening. Every building wants to be different from other buildings. And now see, they all look the same. For some reason, they have all started looking the same. And there is a speed, a general aimless busyness increases. Here's again Thurber's cartoon. These people are going to their destinations. You can see there are people rushing to the left and to the right. But the ultimate destination is behind them. And that destination is the one against which no amount of speed will work. These are learnings. So we are part of big anonymous machines. They make us feel powerless, and opaque bureaucracies grow. You can see it all over, everywhere. So what do we learn while working then? How do we get over this? We must remember, and this is what I've learned, we remember that tools and methods are means, are our tools. They are not the ends. Getting a better iPhone is not going to make my life necessarily better. So the tools and methods are means, not ends. And then the second thing one learns, or I have learned, patience. Humor. Humor is so important. And keeping the senses awake. Every day in the morning when you wake up, there's a fantastic light just outside your window. Maybe there's one tree and the leaves are shivering in that. Are my senses awake? These are the things with which we overcome the disproportionate rule of systems. Now let's talk about what I learned in architecture. This is more actually what all you came for. The first one was general, but I think it's important. So in architecture, I've learned that there is an ongoing complex interaction between a locale, the human responses to adapt to the conditions, and the artifacts made in order to serve needs. This interaction leads to the formation of specific relationships and the evolution of the institutions of a culture. The evolved forms and expressions as artifacts, as well as institutions, become the template which shapes further development. So it's like this. You have a locale, land, climate, vegetation. You have artifacts, built form, tools, methods of work, and you have cultural choices, language, philosophy, belief. And that becomes the circle, it becomes a spiral. And the earlier choices, the earlier tools, the earlier understanding of locale keeps continuing to work. That's what we call a culture, a civilization, etc. So, after the Renaissance, there came about a model of architecture which I find a bit problematic for myself. On the one side, on the left-hand side, you have the object-like architecture, where an inside is an inside and outside is an outside. And you have control over the interior domain. Maybe you have got air conditioning and then you don't have to worry about anything. Absolute constancy in space and time. And a perfect, symmetrical, regular form. So it's an architecture of shapes. Much of today's architecture is like that. But there is another kind of architecture. There's a tree here, there's some space outside, there are two buildings, there are verandas. What is it? Everything is inside. The tree is inside, the chalk is inside, the veranda is inside, the room is inside. There's no such thing as outside. I am inside the world. So it only does not control interactions. It modifies interactions. And there is not a continuous absolute constancy. There are transformations. At night, it's different. In rainy season, it's different. In winter, it's different. In summer, it's different. So there's changes, transformations. And this we might call configurations or formations rather than shapes. This is the kind of architecture which I feel has come to us out of years and years of responding to our very diverse climates, to our social life, to the tools with which we make things. All of this we have been doing like that. And this, maybe we are beginning to lose that, and we are making shapes and shapes. The shape is singular, unified, finite, and everything is coherent, convergent. There's a sequence, a hierarchy, a conceptual and mental it is. It is singular. It is pure. So everything which is impure is removed. Fortunately, our society is not like that. We are multiple and plural. We have overlays, layer upon layer. We are experiential and bodily, not conceptual and mental. Today I was listening to T.M. Krishna. He said that our memory is emotional memory. And we disperse, diverge, we connect, interact. So it's a different kind of diagram. And the architecture that comes out of it is cellular, granular, accretive, open-ended. This is truly this messy culture's architecture. And we are a culture of mess. See, look how we eat. Huh? Even the plate becomes completely messy at the end, or the banana leaf. But what a wonderful taste. Now, this is the choice that we have to make. That post-Renaissance, that post-industrial, that managerial, technocratic world, which wants everything to be conceptually and mentally coherent, convergent. Or do we want that world of juicy taste? This is the choice. So my students and I, this is a first year. So I asked them to go and see places in Ahmedabad, and without taking any measurements, they had to make models when they came back. They made many mistakes, but ultimately they made very interesting models of different kinds of places. And from that, I'm learning. You can see these are their projects, the first year projects. I'm learning that there are many, many different things when they come together in different ways, then we start getting sort of, and if you put the students' work side by side, you get a city almost. But this is another student's work. I'm trying to understand the mess that is India in a very wonderful sculptural way. And here is the end of semester, the city that the students had made by walking and finding out different kinds of places, and then making models of them, then modifying them, then making different new ones. And this is where my learning that everything is granular comes from there. So I use it in my own work. What I learned from the students, I'll use it. So here is my analysis of the palace at Vijayanagaram. Okay, and I won't get into the analysis. It's all done. Then we were asked to do a competition for the Kannada University. This was my partner's guru who said, no, you have to do it. There were only 4 days before the date of submission. So what could we do? So like students, we took Xeroxes of plans of that palace, and we other Xeroxes of Pattadakkal and all those places, and we created a city of learning, in which there are 4 sectors. There's a street going from the recreational lower part to the upper Senate Hall, and that's called the Street of Academia. And then there is the social street, which is at cross-axis too. This is a typical Indian city. And there is an imaginary elevation that we have drawn, which is purely out of our own mind. This was a very beautiful site. There were photographs of site which we had. What an enjoyable thing to do, just as if I was a student. And in 4 days, like you do. I know that you guys also do your projects in 4 days. And so there you are. But I found that the Xerox gives us a sense of scale, a sense of particularity, and by cutting and repasting, I can get all kinds of different forms, and I can create an entire city. Of course, if I got the project, I won't build like this, but I will take the principles from here. And this is something which I learned, that the granular understanding of a form, of life, is the basis for the multiplicity that arises in our societies. The other thing I learned with students when we went to different places, how do you respond to a location? At such beautiful sites we saw, and we made drawings of that. So when I got the project for the Center for Environment Education, I had my principles all put down. This is the concept sheet, students do this. I also did it at that time. I said, I will do this project because I'm a teacher. I must do everything that I ask a student to do. So here you have the explanation of all the things. Then you have models, and you have the basic ideas. And then you have, see here, I'm studying the anthropometrics, the furniture layouts. I come to a module out of that. Then a structural system is decided. And then the whole geometry is tied together. This is what I would expect a student to do. So I had to show it myself. And then the project was built. And material, brick. It goes well with the green. The site was fully planted with trees. And then I have a most wonderful structural engineer. And with him, we worked out a very, very economical structure. I'll talk about that a little later. Then something else. We have to access, that spiral I showed at the beginning? The early parts of that spiral. What is the archaic memory of this place? So that's what I call learning from history. History is not facts and figures. It's what is the archaic memory that is deposited in history. So here is one of my students' sections. This is Roma Tayyabji's section of the Kailash temple at Ellora, showing the different layers. It's a section at 3 places. From this, I can start sensing the notion of space and the notion of horizon. This is another student's work. This is Kartikeya's drawings of Sarkhej and Modera, and where the whole notion is, how do you hold a space? Do you go down and do you go up again and emerge, or do you contain it in any other way by geometry and so on? So these are the kinds of learnings from the Gujarat sense of building, which is 500,000 years old. And what light does in this place, in this hot, dry environment. How do I create shade, shadow? I appreciate that more than everything. And so there, now I'm trying to use that in my work. This is a house that I designed years ago. And there, my learning was from 2 sets. On one side, you see on the left-hand side, the Mill Owners Association. What do you do in Mill Owners Association? You climb up to a certain level. So your relation to the horizon is changed. The horizon, which was at your body level, now you are slightly above the horizon. And that gives you a vantage. The vantage over the Sabarmati River. Then if you go still further, you get release, the sky, lots of sky. If you go below, then you get an interiority. The same happens in Ellora. Corbusier must have learned from it. Just as a joke, I'm saying. But at Ellora, you come in, you get into the rock, you're enclosed, you're interior, then you climb up. And the right-hand side temple, you go up, and it opens to the sky. And there, you've got the same set of relationships: the ground, the sky, the horizon. Now, in this house, we create, first we arrive at a slightly higher level from where you can see the river. So by changing the horizon, I'm creating a relation to the land. The main living space is at that level, on the left, on the right, both sides. So you can see the bottom part here, very few openings. Upper part, lots of openings. So this is the ground level from which, but on the right-hand side, you got the lower level, the swimming pool level, the basement level, where you feel held. You go up, you can look at the river. You go still further up, you're looking at the whole world. You're looking at the sky. This change is something. Then how do you respond to urban context? This is also something I learned from students. Here are two theses done by students from where I'm looking at different city plans. How do they relate? What do they say? Or two houses, one in Jaipur and one in Jodhpur, again studied by one of my students. And I'm looking at how geometry, symmetry, all these things do certain changes to the architecture. So that applies to the competition I did with my partners, Sohan Neelkanth and Kallol Joshi, and with the help of Professor Varki, who was my teacher. We did this Samarkand Ulugh Beg Memorial Complex in Samarkand. We didn't win the competition, but it was great fun doing it. So there it is. Now, there are certain aspects of urbanity. In this lecture, I can't talk too much about that, but I learned so many things from those students' studies, and with Varki as our teacher, we made this abstract, and he called it the bridge across. And it tied up two parts of Samarkand. And then he has all the ways in which the basic architectural language works out. How do you inhabit a place? That is also something that one learns. So two of my students, they have studied, one has studied Madhapur near Bhuj, which has wonderful housing and streets and variations, and yet a certain degree of rigorous, clean building form. And then this is Tera, which was studied by another one of my students. And you can see the streets and the unity of the language. You can see the plans. This helped me to think about housing. And so when I did the housing in Calcutta, we were trying to get some of that feel. So that's the low income group housing, where there are 4 houses forming a block, and then they go up, and then there are 4 more, and then there are 3 more. So it's 11 houses that form a block, and this street in between, which is a pedestrian street. Now the sense of that, what one had learned from Bhuj and from Madhapur, or from any sorts of places that one had seen, maybe even Mykonos. But the student studies started telling things to us. Every inhabitant wants to have a face, wants to have a way of saying, yes, please come, you can arrive here. And that's how you never put blocks, but you create places between. Blocks, that's object-like. Places between, that's like that accretive, granular form. That's what happens between the houses. So you never feel that I'm in block B, third floor, number 4. It's always like I'm in that courtyard with the statue of the horse outside. And then in the high income group, we tried to create 25 different types of apartments in each block, which takes away that repetitive something which is so necessity. How do you get out of necessity? And there you start getting that you don't see these as blocks anymore, but as a kind of city wall which holds a great green space in between. How do you get over necessity? How do you find freedom? These are the kind of questions which drive these. So how do you experiment and innovate? So one of my students, he's been traveling all over Gujarat and collecting different. So I was fascinated to see that there is a bunch of people who traditionally build rammed earth walls. We think it's our invention. It's been there for hundreds of years in North Gujarat. And see how beautifully this brick and stone have been brought together. And see what the carpenter is capable of doing. So the experimentation, the innovation is in the very act of making. It's not something which you have to, have these big slogans about innovation and so on. It's natural. If you pay attention to the material, if you pay attention to the place, that's what happens here. So in the Khamir Crafts Park in Bhuj, near Bhuj, how we did that project is very interesting also. First, we took Xeroxes of plans of buildings from all over the world, because buildings are generally roughly the same. Huh? There's not much difference between an African one, a North African, South American, Indian. You'll find long houses, you'll find square houses. Of course, they are different, but that's at detail level. Anyway, out of this, we made 3 kinds of villages. One village had a street going from left to right. On one side, the arrival place, on the other side, the main social space. This also had a similar thing. But the third one was kind of complicated. A street which was winding around and making. So our client said, yes, this is the one that we want. And so we got that. Then we were looking at the horizon. We were looking at how the silhouette stands against the sky. We were looking at the different materials. These are the kinds of experiments, out of which we came to a rather simple plan, but where we paid great attention to the material and the construction. And with the help of our structural engineer, we were able to make earthquake safe rammed earth. We were able to make wattle and dog. Each of these became something to experiment with. So here on the bottom left, one of my past students, now a faculty member at CEPT, he is actually making that screen. which on the right side bottom pictures, you can see them lifting that screen. And the wattle and daub walls, which are completed, a colored flooring, which is being experimented with. So these were all kinds of things that materials lead you to. And the use of waste material, the use of all kinds of things, whatever is available to create an environment where the sun and the shade are the main things. How do you work with technology? So technology is something which is very exciting. So here in the Center for Environment Education, we had these different kinds of spans, and we decided to use a funicular vault, what do you call it? Anyway, it's a cross beams in two directions. Yeah, which was worked out at Structural Engineering Research Center in Chennai, and which we just adopted, but our engineer did wonderful things to design it so that the use of concrete and the use of steel is amazingly low in this building. And now this is the Kokma building, where we were working with rammed earth. And you can see people making rammed earth here with their own hands. And that's the result that you get once the shuttering is opened. What a wonderful chocolate-like feeling it has. You almost feel like licking it. And then that's the building beginning to take shape. So this is what technology, and these are experiments with wattle and daub, how you do the bamboo screen, weave, and then plaster it on both sides with mud, and then finally plaster it with lime. And then this is our own experiment. We wanted to do the gable ends, which are the worst in earthquake, they break first. So we wanted a very light screen there. And we decided to use all the old tins which were from the site and create this kind of a screen. That's the result. The building workers called this Jurassic Park. This is another fantastic experiment. With Himanshu Parikh, we were designing a hall for the Swaminarayan temple to span a space of 35 meters by 65 meters space frame. And Himanshu designed such a light frame. And he said, the thing I want to design is something where you will never need any centering or shuttering to make the whole, to cover the space first and then build the space frame. And two, every module of the space frame is such that two people can carry it easily. And so this whole space frame is built with 4 workers, 2 on the ground, 2 up there who lift up with pulley, and then they start, and it is bolted, and the joint is designed by him. What wonderful sense. And that's the hall before the sheeting was put on. And it's still one of the most fascinating places. How do you enjoy the act of making? You have to like places, you have to like people, you have to like materials. So making is something where here, for example, you are feeling that you have found this little space in the forest. Actually, the forest is what we planted. It wasn't forest, like there were 2 trees on that side. But in our imagination, once the trees had grown, it would become like this. So this is this house. By the way, I must tell you that these 2 wedge-shaped walls, this I copied from one student's work. So students are very useful, and teaching has its great benefits. So there's the house. Many things in it. One could give a talk just on that house, but there's not enough. There's the bathroom, one of the bathrooms. That's the living space. This is, the windows you can see are at a very low level. So once Doshi had told me that in India we sit on the ground. So why are our windows so high up? And so I decided that let's try to make a house with windows at almost at floor level, just about 500 millimeters above the floor level. And if you sit on the ground, you can look out. If you stand, you can't look out. It's good punishment for those who want to stand. And it created a wonderful house. The light is different, the feel of the space is different. And then we have another room here, which is the music room, and where the acoustics required a certain, so the roof is made in a way in which, so all these investigations, finally enjoying the participation of people. So after the earthquake, I learned how to work in such a way that I was not alone, that there were hundreds of others who were also designing things. So this is the village in which we worked. And these are the meetings that we had with the villagers. You can see the girls here are telling us what they would like to have. And these older people, this man is singing the bottom left. Even after the earthquake, he still had the guts to sing. And then this is the basic glorified cupboard of a house that we designed and its various variations. And each owner was asked what kind of stuff they would like. And we had, so there was this kind of a unit and the main space. And people added things over time. People decorated the insides of their houses. People made them their own. And it's the architect's work is of hardly any importance. It is what the people do to these places that makes them really live places. Here's a wonderful example. On the bottom middle, you can see the camels. So here there was this lady whose house we were building, and it had a concrete frame which goes around every door. It's an earthquake requirement. So she came with a plastic camel and she said, listen, this is the vehicle of our goddess. So can you make sure somewhere in the house we get this camel? So we found many more and put them all in the shuttering. And now she has a door with many camels. Now that's what is participation. And then I taught that to my students. What I had learned from there, I shared with my students. And this is a second-year studio of housing where 4 students have to put their designs side by side. And then they have to start seeing what is happening. And they are working collaboratively and participation-wise. And that is finally, learning begins in yourself. It goes into the classroom. It comes back into the office. Then it goes back into the classroom. And it comes back into the office. And that circle of learning and teaching is what makes the life of a teacher so happy. Thank you.
Wow, that was really mesmerizing and such a poetic presentation. You brought back the love for wonder, humility, rituals, participation, and all of these that reinforce the joy of learning in us. I think the last 45 minutes were sheer wisdom. And it's so difficult to find it in today's time. This talk was a guide to life and living both. Most importantly, you shared with us the value of immersion, to immerse in one's act, to be consumed by it, and thus focus on your actions. A lot was discussed today, things that, all learners may not apply immediately or ponder on right away, but surely it's worth rumination. I'm sure that this recording that is available on Facebook as well as in our dashboard is something that people will come back to very often. Now we'll now open up for some questions, and as the participants type in their questions, let me first begin with one of the first thoughts that came to me while you were presenting. We saw how learning in architecture is lifelong, and it has one can say divided into three different aspects. One is skills, where they could be related to tools, they could be related to software. Like we saw how for you xeroxing and duplicating and making modules was one of the tools that you used. Tools are also interpersonal, the connect that you have with your client, how a client can directly come to you and say, I need this camel somewhere inside in it's these are skills, like how do you communicate with one another, as well as what kind of tools and software one is using. Now these skills with focus and practice, they're easy to imbibe, they're easy to improve on. The more you do it, the more better you get at it. The second aspect one can say is knowledge could be about ancient technology, latest innovations in material and technology. We learn a lot from history, from our past. Sometimes it's also about trends. So like if I take this example, housing today is kind of moving away from just the BHK formula, but towards the concept of co-learning. And this is knowledge, information that you kind of seep in and take in. So these are things that you need to know to keep yourself updated. But the last one, the most crucial one, and that was actually like the spine and the crux of your entire presentation, it was sensitivity. And sensitivity separates a good design from a poorly designed space. You inspired by your talk towards a sensible ideology. Now, the question that I have, and especially for most young students here, is how do we hone this sense and sensibility in ourselves? I'm sure that, as a young Neelkanth, who may have just graduated from college, to Professor Neelkanth Chhaya, that journey has a lot of lessons that happen. And I think that transition is what will help the students more. You shared the outcome of your learning, analysis through your works, but it's that act of doing, and doing it differently every time that you're doing it, right? Because of the lessons that you learned in the past is critical. It's the act that makes the difference. So what advice do you have on actions for our learners? Because sense and sensibility, we believe, is an intangible quality. How do learners direct this inspiration that you have given them through the right actions?
So I think, first of all, skills, you are right. It's just application, riyaz. Keep on doing. More riyaz, you become better and better at it. That's fine. Knowledge, it's easy to take, throw away, as long as you don't let your mind get clogged up, which is where many people suffer, because they stick to knowledge of one kind and then they say, no, this is true knowledge. So knowledge, how to be a little loose about it, that every knowledge is incomplete knowledge. I think if Einstein had not thought that understanding of gravity is yet incomplete, then he could not have created new knowledge. So that is about knowledge, the looseness with which we hold knowledge. But sensitivity, I think every human being, every child who is born is sensitive. But gradually, you are trained to shut off your senses first, then your feelings, because that will come in the way. You have to be a tough person to be in this world. That's what we are told. And that creates, so the hindrances to sensitivity are the ones to become aware of. The hindrances are anger, hate, fear. These are the hindrances. And how to maintain a certain equanimity in the flow of things. That is sensitivity. And all of us try to do this all the time. And the more sense that you have that it's okay. In life, there are good things, there are bad things. And I might be a good architect, I might not be such a good architect. Doesn't matter that much. With that, you will be somebody you never expected yourself to be. And I think that is where the whole question of sensitivity is not something that either you have it or you've got to develop it, like, developing six-pack and muscles and whatnot. It's not like that. Sensitivity cannot be, it is there. It is there in every human being. And this is something which we should be always aware, that you are sensitive. You are not insensitive. It is only that you have hardened the shell around you. Yeah. By the way, it's such a pleasure to see all these friends whom I have not met for ages. I can't speak out the names, but it's wonderful to see them all here. From Pune, from Baroda, from everywhere. Yes. Anyway, go on.
Great. We will open up the session for direct Q&A, and we'll ask the participants to unmute themselves as well. So it can be an informal chat between friends as well. I think Neeraj here has a question. Neeraj, would you like to unmute and ask?
Yes, Sonam. Sir, sustaining in architecture requires a level of composure.
Yes, Neeraj, go ahead.
As I was saying, sustaining in architecture requires a certain level of composure, constant involvement with its associated domain, and thereby establishes this need and a sense of being driven and passionate about it. For the people who might be struggling to be consistent or are in a conflict about whether this is the right path for them, what might be some ways to tackle this block and find an answer to what's next?
I think the sense of humor is very important, and not to take yourself so seriously. From there begins the loosening up. And I think that is sufficient. From there, everything else can happen. And all these things, the theoretical statements about it and so on. For in the end, just relax and be, and then enjoy whatever is there. Yeah, Dharma wanted to say something. He has raised his hand. I'm sorry, Sonam, but we have been friends for so long, and it's a great pleasure to see him. So,
yes.
Hi. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Dharma, you can unmute yourself. You're on mute.
Yeah. Sorry. No, Chhaya, in fact, I would have liked, and rather than conveying it to you, I would like rather to convey to others that still this man with such a long beard has got a wonderful child still in him. And the subject that you just talked about, these people won't even imagine that, like a master like Rajay working in IIM office, we still used to talk about something which is so jocular every moment, even cutting the jokes on the boss the moment he is absent. And
Yes.
that is what made you come here, and still made, and that is still seen, and I can hear it still in your such a simple sweet smile hidden behind that such a long white beard. And why I all said it is to convey to the students that that is a real teacher coming out of a good student and a good worker in the office, and that made us great in our own respect, and that is the only thing which we can give it to them, which probably they're missing today. I see with my students also, they don't have this such a simple sense of cutting a joke when required. Yeah, I'm over. Chaya, I want you to respond to the students.
Yes, yes. No, I will. I will. Mostly तो jokes ही होगा साहब. लेकिन आगे चलते.
We do see a lot of raised hands and some questions in the tab as well. Can I please request Akshata Narayan to go next, please? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you, Sonam. Thank you, sir, for your great insights. This was really inspiring. So my question to you is, you have led and mentored and visited many schools, colleges in India during your whole this journey. So from your experience of weaving student or like us architects or practitioners in the fraternity, collectively, are we designing with empathy, responsibility that we have towards the society as students or as architects in India?
I think I'm very happy to say actually that today's students are far more empathetic than before. We were trained in the mold of domination. You know, the architect had to be somebody who pushed his will. Yeah. Still, my generation architects are somewhat like that. But today's students, because of climate change, because of all the things that are happening, they have become more empathetic. They are willing to see that there is a world which might be so fragile that it will go if we are not careful. And so they are willing to be. The only thing is that the fashionable response to that versus the real deep-rooted response. And so many techniques are being sort of promoted as being the answers. They are never the answers. The answers are in your behavior, in your everyday behavior. And so I think this question of schools across the country, a school is a very strange creature in the sense it asks for competence and is often misunderstood. Competence is often misunderstood as competition. Therefore, it's a violent place. It's an aggressive place. Both the teachers and the students get into that. On the other side, it is the most compassionate place because there are friends and there are teachers and their students who the teachers are trying to take care of. And this thing is something which across India, I think the care for students and the care amongst the students for each other, I'm afraid there has been a reduction. So on the one side, for the environment, there is a great deal of compassion. For other human beings, there is less compassion. And I think this is something which we all need to think about. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
There are a few questions from institutes and colleges, so please allow me to give them the chance first. RV College of Architecture, Bangalore would like to unmute and ask your question, please.
Yeah, Thank you, Sonal, and thank you, Professor, for having shared your insights with us today. It was quite interesting that you spoke about paradoxes. I think all of us, in a subtle way, face paradoxes day in and day out. But when you spoke about paradoxes,
yes.
okay. So when you spoke about the paradox of necessity and the freedom from necessity, what we understood is to set that locus in motion, necessity sets a direction. But when we're speaking about freedom from that necessity, does it happen in the same act? Does it happen in the same space and time, or does it alternate? Especially if we're guiding students in a direction in design, then how do we guide them in exploring this aspect?
No, it's, I think, let me give a very simple kind of answer. I need a certain amount of nutrition every day, which consists of certain quantities of vitamins, proteins, carbohydrates, etc., etc., etc. That is necessity. Or I need water, certain amount per day. That's necessity. But when somebody brings the water to me in a beautiful earthen vessel and pours, and I drink it like that, then it is a different poetic, the freedom to taste water in different ways. Or you take a mango, you know, we can cut a mango in so many ways. But one of the wonderful ways is to cut one whole cheek of it and then put cuts in it, turn the thing round, and it comes to you like a small thing which you can eat. It's a beautiful proposition. The necessity was only some food. So I think necessity is everything that is must be there. And freedom is how to enjoy that necessity. Freedom is not how to get over necessity. Freedom is how to enjoy that necessity. Yes.
They kind of intersect, actually. They're not moving away from each other.
Yeah. Intersect is a very difficult word. They are not geometrical things. They are feelings. Yeah, okay, carry on.
All right, thank you.
Can I now request the architecture department at Mizoram University to please unmute and ask your question?
Good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, but we could see you earlier, but now we can't. Can we see you as well? Yes.
Correct.
My question to you is, you were talking about the importance of inadequacy, since it's not a matter of regret. And after so long of actually pursuing architecture, building and seeing things, do you still believe in the term good architecture and bad architecture?
Yes, I do.
And sir, if you do, can you please define what is good architecture for you and what is bad architecture to you, that is?
Not to me, but I think that good architecture is that, you know, Paul Klee said, art is that which makes the invisible visible. And good architecture is something that tells you, oh yes, this is a hill. Or that's the sea, look, you forgot that is there. That is good architecture. Good architecture says it's very hot outside. Come inside, be cool. Good architecture says, wow, look at the sky today. This is the way good architecture, irrespective of whether it is me, you, anybody else, it is something that makes suddenly something present to us. That it is not something which is looks good. All of that I'm not too worried about. It is about how it makes present aspects of life which are not so easily present. I think that's what's good architecture. It could be about relationships to nature. It could be relationships between human beings. It could be relationships to the world, the plants, the trees, etc. All of these, architecture mediates and makes visible to us, presences them to us.
I think your question was answered.
Excuse me, sir. So we have one more question.
One more, we'll circle back to you because we have a few more colleges. We'll circle back to you for sure. Yes, colleges which would like to ask their questions, please raise your hand so that I can, take your questions. I think there is one question by Alpana. Alpana, would you like to unmute yourself? Okay. All right, let's move on to the next question then. We have another one from Avdesh Kumar. Avdesh, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. Give one more chance to Mizoram University. From there, we can ask.
You would want? Sure, Mizoram University. Go ahead then.
Yes, ma'am. I'm asking from Mizoram University.
Oh, you are from Mizoram University. All right, perfect. Go ahead.
Hello. So my question is, as an architect, how to make sure that vernacular techniques and modern techniques go hand in hand?
Sorry, I did not get the question clearly. Can you say it again?
Yes, he wants to know that how do you make sure that latest technology as well as vernacular technology, how do we ensure that they go hand in hand when you're designing?
So why make the two departments first?
Technology is technology.
Technology is technology. Khan said technology is a large hammer. That's all. But it can be found yesterday. We could have found a better way of doing something. Or it could have been found many, many years ago. And both of them might be useful for different parts of the building, in the same building. So it often happens that we use this, but main thing is that we bring it together in a way in which they harmonize, not in ways in which we create clashes.
Wonderful. Sanjita here, she is a fine art teacher. She's a sculptor. She has a question. Sanjita, yes.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. So I've just, it's a straight off question. I just want to have a deeper understanding. You can even brief it out to me. I'm a practicing artist, I'm a sculptor. So if I have to induce a kind of, or articulate, the lessons to a higher semester like 7th, 8th, or even masters or architecture students, then how do I induce my ideas or thoughts into exercises? How can I bring it out? I mean, I saw some of your, the slides also, it gave me quite a lot of ideas, but to make it little more clear to me, I mean, you can just give me a view.
Sanjita, which college are you talking about?
Yes, I'm teaching in BMS Architecture College, but I studied from Shantiniketan.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. So this question is very important. Yes. Very difficult to give a brief answer, but still I'll try. First of all, somewhere we have to find the students' core experiences. So if we understand our students and we find that there is something that is fascinating them, we could use that to create exercises. I think that even just working on the senses can be something. For example, recently I came across somebody, what he does, he blindfolds the students for a day. And then they have to draw while they are blindfolded. You know, you touch something and you feel it and you get the shape of it, then you draw it. The next day, the blindfold is not there and the drawing and the object are placed side by side. And then something else is done. Maybe you cut that object. You could use useless objects or pieces of fruit or something like that. By that process, and relationship between the sensorial aspect and the emotional aspect starts happening slowly. And then I think, for example, one thing that I often used to do was to have these things students give each other as gifts. Now that started another. So I had you say a student had done a design. And that student was supposed to gift that design to the next person with a delivery note in which it says, this is the thing which I'm giving, so many drawings, so this. The other student has to sign a receipt which says, found so-and-so in good condition. Plans are well worked out, but sections are inadequate, something. Now, then that student, second student who took the delivery is supposed to work on that. Again, that student will pass it on to another one. I wonder whether in art, because in our original ways of doing art, this is always how we have worked. You see how an alpana is made, or you see how people make different decorations when there are festivities. And they do things and then the next person takes over and that person does something else and third one comes in. This kind of thing that takes away, because one of the problems to students getting into the exercises is that they're afraid that they will be judged, that this is good. This way, nobody is responsible and it becomes something which is a jointly held mistake, whatever it is. So it's very nice. So I think the few of the things, then other things could be there, definitely.
Definitely, it sounds more interactive and it involves the whole space along with the thought process. It's like Chinese whispers also once it passes.
Chinese whispers is very useful.
That's right. That's why I came up with this question, because my thinking is so different. I think differently, but always whenever I interact with the students, they induce utility in every form. The utility is first thing that comes in their mind before the form.
So the accidents are very useful. So suppose there is some clay and you ask them to chuck it at a wall, then it took a shape, that ball of clay. Then in that they have to work, irrespective of anything. So find accidents which can create the basis, because again, the accident makes you less responsible. And it is the world which is responsible. And there, then the freedom starts. So try out this kind of things.
Wow, that was wonderful advice.
Really
there's
wonderful.
A question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanjita. There's a question from Vindhya Kanti. Would you like to unmute yourself, please?
Sure, ma'am. Yes. So I'm sorry for not on my video because of the power cut. So just wanted to ask you, sir, thank you so much for enlightening us on the certain things, but thank you so much again. And my question for you would be, how do you define that? How do you tell students that, in heritage building to, adaptive reuse or, restore that heritage, what can the interior designer do a better serve as a, like as a whole, as a students?
So you want me to talk about how interior design?
Yes. So basically my question would be like, some students would think that, our heritage structures are something that, just for the tourism, to maintain it or to, sustain it for a long, they need certain treatment to be done, or they need something to be, more visiting, more spending and more maintenance. So I would definitely ask you the question to explain then how it can be workable or how it can be, more serving in the country, more into.
So first of all, I think when someone falls sick, we don't immediately kill that person. Yeah?
Yes, of course.
But we do that to buildings.
Yeah.
So I think it's very nice that we should have building nurses. And who don't call themselves architects, interior designers, etc. And who are just so keen that anything which is of value or which has still some usability in it, or who looks old like me but still maybe requires some little bit of dawa from time to time. So then that should be done. Dawa medicine. Yeah. And so I think if you connect it to human bodies, I have found that if I talk to students about things which are immediately experienceable, then that simile starts making a different kind of sense to them. Instead of talking only in technical terms about the need for maintenance, the need for this and all that, I would rather say, let's see, what shall I do with my teeth? One of them is already sort of, so what to do? And from there we start with a small personal assessment of oneself, then go to the building. Maybe that will help.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. Wonderful. There's kind of a closing question from Chetna. So Chetna, just hang in there. I will ask you to ask that question towards the very end of this Q&A session. Soumya, you have a question. Please unmute yourself and shoot out. There are a few more about vernacular and traditional and modern technologies in architecture. I think you responded to it enough through the presentation as well as through the later questions. So I will not ask them on.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, Soumya.
Hello, sir. I am from that time, from SEPT, when we used to see you walk around in the campus, and it feels so happy to see you again now. I'm an assistant professor in BMS College of Architecture. So I have a very simple question, yet a little complicated in its words. So I'll just read out whatever I've written, sir. So today's, in the sea of thoughts that we had in today's session, you spoke in one part, you spoke about particularity of space. So, and we also read it to be an embodiment of nature of space as probably the entrance, the gateway, or the space inside, or something like that. And the poetics of space, which you spoke about through Kannade sir's residence, where simplicity resides. And even the sensorial experience, which is very important for us in today's design process, which can be read through very well in our I'd say Indian traditional architecture, be it temples, be it the old mosques or the churches. But is it possible to actually keep up with that in our contemporary examples, in our studios, in a very similar way? Because somewhere that has become a little difficult as a teacher for me as well to see through that. So just wanted a few thoughts on that, sir.
I don't see why it should not be possible. It's always possible to bring a small glass of water with 3 flowers in it into your studio and put it on the table, irrespective of whatever the studio is made of. How are we going to, when you put on your clothes, when you comb your hair, whatever you have accepted, and from there you are beginning. And one says that, okay, if I comb my hair like this, maybe it looks a little better, but this way it is quite a shabby stuff and all that. Whatever it is there. Huh? So I think it is no point blaming the change. Yes, there is one thing in which the change is to be blamed, and that is turning everything into a kind of a generalized, generic thing. A room is a room is a room. A classroom is a classroom is a classroom. No. Actually, this tree outside this classroom or that dog barking outside, they make it a particular kind of classroom. And how is that architecture going to respond to that? So I think that even in the existing buildings which are given to you, I think it is possible. For example, I remember at BMS, you have that mound outside on which people sit, some steps and so on.
Yes, yes.
Now, that is a space which is made by the users. And like that, why not in the every studio also? Why not take over the studio? You know, like that guy said, take over Wall Street. Take over studios, change them, transform them.
Thank you very much, sir. Definitely will take that ahead.
The next question is from Sukhraj, after which we will take 2 more questions, and that will be the end of the formal Q&A.
Hello, sir. This is Sukhraj here. Hi, Sonam.
Hi.
We have interacted before. Good to see you also today. I have been practicing since a couple of years by myself, and I have had the chance to work with architects like Chitra Vishwanath and the likes. My question is more of an approach-oriented question where I'll try to explain it in a very comical way. Right now, I deal with clients, and at the same time, I'm trying to learn better. 2 years hasn't been enough to learn from the best of architects out there. So I've been reading Vitruvius, the 4 books of architecture by Palladio, and all of these things. So my morning starts with reading these masters, and at the second half of the day, I'm dealing with clients, and their needs are very simplistic and they're very aspirational. So when I talk about design, they would need something which is hello.
Yes, just 1 minute. Unmute.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
So their needs are very simplistic in the way that the way they approach their needs is more aspirational. To give you an example, I was purchasing lights for a client the other day, and I saw these 2 guys behind me. They were looking at the more the more shimmery ones and the more glamorous ones, which we as architects don't really advise. That's how I have been trained. And I would never advise those to my clients, but these guys were really mesmerized by those light fixtures. And and one of them said to the other guy that I'll soon be buying a house and I'll put all of these there. At that point, I felt that was I somewhere disconnected from the basic aspiration a client has, and I'm trying to impose my minimalist style that I have learned from the masters. So it was a very small thing, but I've always had these uncomfortable situations where a client really wants something which doesn't agree to my sense of design. And so there are, these 3 figures around my head, where there's one, maybe a Frank Lloyd Wright saying that this is the right thing to do. And then there is me who feels that, okay, just give the client what he wants. He really wants it. And then, yes, there's the client who says that, this is what I really like. So how do you bridge these three things, or how do you find a solution amongst all of this? It becomes like an existential crisis at times. So
Yes.
with those small decisions, it's one thing, but it extends to a larger argument that am I really imposing my sense of design on the client, and do I need to choose my clients accordingly who agree to my sense of design or what the masters think is right?
So first, I think it's very important that you do have a sense of design. But it is not something which is frozen. It is something which is in a continuous conversation with new situations, including new people. And the client is one of those people with whom you are having a conversation. And through conversation, you may come to something which is slightly different or quite different from what you began with, or he may or she may come to a slightly different understanding of what her house should be. So this conversation, I think, is very, very important. You are not rigid and fully frozen in your choices, but you do have preferences. Now, that's one whole aspect. Second aspect is sometimes there is a phenomenon happening which is purely it has to do with what's happening all over. Yeah. So, for example, if you look at the TV serials and the melodramatic actions that are there and the kind of music that is there and so on, you feel, oh no, our society has really gone rotten. But in one sense, then I look at it again and I say, wow, how can you enjoy a wedding so much? How is it that we have a society which has that? Or who can enjoy a fight between Saas and Bahu so much? Yeah. And that, I think, so then I start appreciating a little bit. So this shimmery light that you're talking about, suppose I want to make a huge chandelier with shimmering things, but not all those lights. Lights few and metallic things many. Then I think you have a chance to do a sculpture. So you can tell your client, listen, we'll do even better than that. So this question, the automatic response is, hey, come on, I'm supposed to design and you are asking me to do this. But on the other hand, the conversation is something which is very useful. And as I said, my generation was trained in the fountainhead mold, where the muscular architect, it's always a he, by the way, muscular he architect goes and smashes things which are not up to his taste, and all that. Now we are coming to a different existence, and maybe that softer, more interactive being might be a new model for our architecture. This is something that I'm just putting. Maybe we can think about it.
No, I understand, because I was looking at an interview of Frank Lloyd Wright a couple of days back, and so the interviewee asked him that he asked a similar question actually, and Frank Lloyd Wright's reply was that masses are dumb, they don't know what they're talking about. So I was taken a little aback, because that's my own personality who thinks that way. He's a different personality, that also plays a role. But yes, it somewhere felt like listening to the client is the sort of weakness, going by those, you have to be rigid and your personality should show up when you are dealing with clients. That's how you'll stand out.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sukhraj. In fact, I need to say this here that Sukhraj was the president of NASA 2 years back, and it was because of his initial support that this co-hosting and moderation that we're doing with NASA India today actually was was kind of initiated. So in
Thank you.
continuation with Sukhraj's question is another one from Mizoram University. They are on fire here. Sawal pe sawal. So they're saying that this question is about similar to the taste and choice. We also are limited by certain factors of economy. And that plays a very important role in the Indian context. How different is sensibility from economic preferences? If it is, then how do we balance these two? If it is not, then why do we see certain things out there which are majorly not sensitive, but maybe an economic preference in the world? So your response to that, sir?
Yeah. So the distortions that happen to human sensitivities, the distortions are there because of excessive wealth very often. And wealth creates a distorted human being who can only see things and not life. And I think that distortion is to be fought. As far as the other end of the spectrum is concerned, with very little, it's quite possible to enjoy quite a bit. And that also, one should develop the skills for doing that, or the ability to do that. How to do with the whatever means are available, how to create something which is fully juicy and sensuous and fully emotionally satisfying. I think this is
driven by necessity.
Yes, yes.
I think with this, we'll come to the last question. Chetna, would you like to unmute yourself, please, and ask the question? Let me just check in the backend. Yes. Chetna C.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
That was a very inspiring talk, sir. On this occasion of Teachers' Day celebration, what is your message to all the architecture faculty? So I recently joined BMS College of Architecture. It's faculty, and I'm curious to know what your message is.
Well, really speaking, there can't be any message other than be yourself and be fully interested in everything that you do and the people around you. That means students. And for that, certainly you'll get a rich life. I think that's all one can really say. There can't be any specific message.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, in closing, I would like to thank all of you for being here. Thank you, Professor Chhaya, for reinstating that learning is lifelong and it's not confined only to the duration of schooling. Thank you, NASA India and Neeraj, for your support. And thank you to our audience for making this engagement a success. Ethos has always aimed at becoming the wind beneath the wings of the student fraternity through its outside the classroom initiatives. Be it the different and relevant competition briefs or our flagship quizzing event, which is Argument, the avenues to step out of the comforts of the cocoon of your college to explore design intelligence and have some fun on national and international levels. We are pleased to inform you that Transparent 17 edition brief is curated by architect Madhav Raman and Ankur Choksi. It presents 3 categories this year with special incentives for colleges which adopt it as a studio project and an opportunity for winning teams and faculty to go to the Portugal. For Asia's Young Designers Award, any best individually done academic work can be submitted. We request all the faculty present here to nominate their 2022 thesis projects and other good works from their from respective studios as well. The third one, Design Advance, focuses on new age mixed uses for small towns and cities. And IGBC Green Design Competition focuses on learning spaces. For more details on the brief and timelines, do check out ethosempowers.com. The link has also been pasted in the chat by our team. Along with this, we also have ASH membership where you can join as an individual or an entire college to get access to more than 80 plus online courses and instances and very affordable fees. We thank School of Architecture, Reva University for making ASUCH their institutional partner and for taking on the college membership. But today we express our gratitude to students, teachers, learners, mentors, to colleges who took this up in full swing. The colleges which broadcasted our talk in their auditorium. CMR University, School of Architecture, Bangalore, Department of Planning and Architecture, Mizoram University, School of Architecture, Reva University, Deenbandhu Choturam University of Science and Technology, Murthal, Shri Shri University, Govindpur, School of Architecture, CIED, Coimbatore, Vivekananda Global University, Jaipur, Lovely Professional University, Pagwara, National Institute of Technology, Hamirpur, JD Institute of Fashion Technology, Bangalore, JD School of Design, Bangalore, RV College of Architecture. These colleges broadcasted in their respective auditoriums. And colleges who could not broadcast because of local festivities at Sanant Chaturdashi today have also joined in through individual enrollments. These are BMS College of Architecture, Bangalore, JNAFU, Hyderabad, Sundardeep College of Architecture, Aurora Design Academy in Hyderabad. Thank you one and all for coming on board with us for this session. We hope that this has inspired you to continue making socially and environmentally responsible briefs as an intrinsic part of your design and pedagogical process. Last but not the least, thank you to the awesome team at Ethos who ensure that every event leaves a charm. Nikita, Sejal, and Krishna for being the rocks of SNS and ASUCH. Rasya, Akshata, Vaishnavi for ARCOS direction. Shruti, Shivani for industrial awesomeness. Radhika, Kanchan, Motushi for ideation at IDS. Priyanka, Nikita, and Rasya for staying on backup because the show must go on. Love to all you girls. And lastly but not the least, Geeta Balakrishnan for this love and inspiration. So alvida dosto, ponder on the deliberations we had today and be the difference. So long until the next talk. If Professor Chhaya is open to any informal discussions and participants would like to, come on the camera and interact, I think we can have some rounds of conversations and then we can call it a day or afternoon. Reena has been on her camera for quite some time.
Yes.
Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I didn't want to say hi, Reena, but now that you've said it.
Always a pleasure to interact and listen to you. I look forward to it every time. Thank you.
The cats? How are the cats?
The cats are fine, sir. They're doing, the numbers
Good.
have stayed 4 so far. So yeah.
All right, very good.
Looking forward to your visit to Pune, sir.
Yes, I would love to do that. You and Dharma are both there. Yes.
I did not know actually her, but then I think I've heard about her name from you people.
Yes.
But I was expecting somebody else also from Pune today. I don't know.
Oh, let's not get into that.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of participants and then I think towards the end, the numbers diminished. So I'm sure many must have joined.
Right. Can we get the list of who have all joined today? Where is we don't get that later on also?
No, not participants.
No, don't do that, Dharma, please.
This is like an attendance.
Okay.
मैं तो check करने कौन आया था, marks नहीं दूंगा.
No, it's dangerous to reveal who all have attended.
So, Abhay, you are also. I haven't seen you for such a long time.
Yeah. No, but that was great. It really reminded me of everything that happened that time.
So good to see you, Abhay.
Really.
Very good to see you, sir. We have connected from our office. So all our interns, all the other architects are listening to you since a long time.
Great.
Wonderful to see you. Wonderful to hear you.
I must come down and see you people. You are in Baroda.
Yes, sir, we are in Baroda. It will be our pleasure, honor.
Yeah. But if you are ever coming,
for sure.
Do visit. Okay, I think this is not the occasion to get on to our small talk. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you for this wonderful afternoon, and we'll stay in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.